And she lost her 14-year-old son, and he was the cutest kid, like bubblegum braces, red hair, big personality. And I'm sure it's higher than that. They just have not come out and said it yet.
Well, that is really scary.
It is.
So, man, this is a big topic. So I wanted to get this podcast going today because Shane actually reached out to me on Instagram, and immediately afterwards, my thought was that if a simple podcast episode could help make like just, even one life different, then I want to do this as soon as possible. So considering that this has become the number one killer for people the age essentially 45 and below in America, right?
That is correct.
I think I'm really happy that you're here today. So I'm here with Janice Celeste, the CEO of Fentanyl Solution, a nationwide nonprofit organization. And I just wanted to say thank you for what you do.
Well, no, thank you for helping me to get the word out because that's so important. That's how we save lives.
Mm-hmm. So I just wanted to hear a little bit about your story because I know you have a pretty big story. And according to Shane, also, I guess you were also in fitness and competed a couple times too, right?
Not fitness so much, but I had to be in shape because I was Mrs. New Jersey, United States in 2015. Kind of fell out of that fitness a little bit. And then I'm now getting back into fitness, but yeah, I don't think I'll be competing anymore. I think I just passed my limits to do that. I mean, there are women though that are competing in fitness contests that are older than me, so they're inspirational. But I think I'll just continue to be a hiker or something and and not compete, but just for health reasons to stay as fit as possible.
Well, for any consolation, you look amazing. So
no, thank
whatever
you.
Whatever you're doing is good.
Thank you. Much appreciated.
Mm-hmm. So can you share a little bit about your story? Like what kind of inspired you to start this whole organization and this whole ordeal?
Well, I had a friend who has a bunch of rehabilitation centers, and often he will hire people who are recovering from addiction. And he lost 23 friends, some personal friends, as well as some of these workers to fentanyl poisonings, which is much different from fentanyl overdoses because you don't know you're taking fentanyl when you're poisoned from it. And he wanted to start a nonprofit and offered to give the seed money to it. He knew my background. I had started in substance abuse program where parents were addicted, and it was my job to make sure their children met their milestones and developed as normally as possible while their parents are trying to recover. They went in and out of recovery. I've been in politics, so that helps because I deal with a lot of politicians, and I started a lot of nonprofits. So as a journalist, which is another hat I wore, I was reporting a lot on fentanyl. And because I'm a parent advocate, I've been a lifelong parent and child advocate, and I saw that this is going to be a big problem. It's like COVID. When COVID started, I was like, oh, this is going to be huge. You don't know you have COVID for 2 weeks before you know, and then you can give it to everyone. Mm-hmm. So just as COVID was big, this is big. As you said, it's the number one killer of people under 45, right? The CDC is about to lower the age. It used to be 18 to 45, and so 14 to 45, but we have infants dying from it 4 times the rate of a few years ago. Senior citizens are also dying 4 times the rate of what they used to. So this is affecting everyone from every demographic, every economic bracket. It doesn't matter what race you are. It does not discriminate. It is really touching everyone. So that's how I got involved in it. I want to save lives. I want to make sure this is not around for the next generation. It's really important to me.
Thank you. You happen to have a personal story connected to this yourself, right?
I have not lost anyone from fentanyl. I guess the reason what keeps me going really with this is that I am closely involved with parents who have lost children under 18 and above 18 to fentanyl poisonings. And their stories, I'll give you one story, for example. We have on our board, Amy Neville. And she lost her 14-year-old son, and he was the cutest kid, like bubblegum braces, red hair, big personality, great kid from a great household in Orange County. He started experimenting with Oxy about 10 days before he passed. And he told his mom the day before he passed that he started taking these pills. She knew his behavior had changed suddenly, and that he could not shake these pills, and he didn't know why. And so, like a good mom, she called and got him into rehab. The rehab had not confirmed yet, and they were going to confirm the next day. She didn't know about fentanyl, and this is the key. Because she didn't know about fentanyl, her actions were different. She let him go to bed without any other questions, just the rehab will be contacting us tomorrow. We'll deal with it then. Had she known about fentanyl, she would have searched his room, had him turn over all the pills, told him about fentanyl, etc. But because she didn't know, he went to bed. He took his last pill, thinking he's going to rehab the next day, and he did not make it. Instead, the ambulance was there to take him to the morgue. And her life has changed dramatically since. And she goes around speaking about this all over California and the United States, trying to get justice. Because the problem is in California, the parents aren't getting any kind of justice. If they do catch the drug dealer who gave the pill to the kid, they may get arrested for having the pills, but they don't get arrested for murder. If they get arrested at all, it's 2 to 3 years. But now in some parts of the state, the DAs are taking it to a federal level if they have a federal officer. Some DAs aren't doing anything. And if they take it to a federal level, they will arrest a drug dealer for murder, and they usually go to prison for 20 years.
Wow. So I know that, I guess according to the statistics, about 150 people die from this every day. And one thing I do know is, fentanyl is measured in micrograms, right? Whereas a lot of the drugs that a lot of recreational drugs use these days are measured in milligrams. So the difference is substantial. And simply just 2 milligrams is an overdose already.
Well, especially if you don't have a tolerance built up to it. You have people who fentanyl is their drug of choice. So they will seek fentanyl and they can handle more. But a teenager getting it in a pill without their consent and not knowing it, just give you an idea, it's like a couple of grains of salt worth of fentanyl in a pill. And you don't know where it is in a pill. So it's not like you can test part of it. You got to test the whole pill, right? So you just don't know if it's in the top, bottom, mixed in, or in there at all. So when they take it, that's it for them. They can't handle it. And that's why the drug laws that are out now does not fit this drug, because a kilo of fentanyl can wipe out like a whole region. So it's not like cocaine or heroin or anything like that. This is really different. And, we're working really hard in our organization to change some of the laws.
I know that it's also found in like a lot of recreational drugs that we didn't even imagine before, right? So I didn't even know this until recently, but I guess it's also found in some weed vapes too. Yeah. Weed vapes and ketamine as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's one of the reports the DEA put out, and which is really scary because you think they're safe, right? And kids will get that and think it's safe. It depends on where you get it from. Of course, here in California, we're legal. So if you get it from a dispensary, you're more likely going to be okay. But if you don't, and a lot of places where it's not legal, they're not. Teens love those things. And so you can easily get fentanyl in there. And the thing with fentanyl is that if it doesn't kill you, you're highly addicted to it. So if you find yourself wanting to get more the next day and more the next day, it's probably because of the fentanyl that's in there. But to make it worse, now they're cutting fentanyl with tranq, which is xylazine, or the zombie drug. You've ever heard of that? That's even worse because there's no antidote for xylazine. Like you can bring people back with naloxone for fentanyl, which is also known as Narcan. But with xylazine, there's no antidote. So the problem with that too is that you'll see people who've had it and they're kind of like in suspended animation, just kind of rocking back and forth, or they're on the ground and they can't get up. A lot of people will inject it, and wherever you inject it will cause necrosis. Basically, it's like it's just flesh eating. It just eats away at your body, which also lends to the zombie name, besides you're in a zombie-like state. But it's supposed to make the high last longer because fentanyl has a really short half-life. So it will go away pretty quickly, which keeps you addicted, right? Brings you right back. Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit about the what was it? The solution for fentanyl. So if anyone, if anyone's going to festivals or if anyone's going to events or if anyone's really just, I know we can't really tell people to just stop taking drugs.
No, doesn't work.
I wish we could, but I know there's people out there that are going to do it regardless. So
right.
As long as there's some kind of solution.
Right. Well, the solution it's truly multifaceted, but just to speak on that, you should be testing your drugs because pretty much the DEA is saying that almost all the pills out there are not real now. So if you think you're getting a Percocet, it's not a Percocet. It looks like it. You think you're getting Adderall, it might look like Adderall. Xanax may look like a Xanax, but there's no medication in it. So what happens is the cartels figured out they don't have to put medication in it. They just got to make you think it's the medication that you want. And they will put fentanyl in just filler, just like powder to fill it. Sometimes it's Tylenol or acetaminophen or whatever you want to call it. Or sometimes it's just powder that's filler. And you're thinking you're taking a Percocet and not. So the best thing to do is they have fentanyl test strips. But the key here, no matter what you heard, what you've seen, is that you have to literally dissolve the whole pill. And just because that pill might be clear fentanyl doesn't mean the rest of the pills you have are clear. So you have to test every pill. So the only way you can manage this is to, once you dissolve it, is to drink the water if you want to still get your high, but it's more likely fentanyl water than Percocet water. So if you don't get it from a doctor with your name on it, and the doctors have just run scared with prescribing opioids because they've been getting sued for overprescribing. And so that's how a lot of people got to the black market. Their doctors stopped prescribing their medications. And so they were still in pain and they had to go somewhere else to get it.
What did you say the doctor stopped prescribing their medications?
Yeah, it's because there was opioid lawsuits that were going crazy. Yep. And the doctors just ran scared. They thought, I'm not getting sued for being basically a dealer. So I'm going to stop writing prescriptions. And everyone fell through those cracks. So the people who were still in pain, they didn't care. They were like, well, you might be addicted, so I'm not writing it for you. And there were truly people who have passed now that have been in that situation. I personally know she had meningitis and she had complications, and her doctor stopped writing her prescriptions and she started getting them on the black market. And of course, at first it was fine. And now she's dead because, they started adding fentanyl to the pills and then they just stopped adding medication altogether. Drug dealers can make 10 times as much doing it that way, not putting actual medication in the pills that they're pressing. And they're pressing these in garages, clandestine labs, sheds, to the point where now they're trying to ban the pill presses. But in other countries like Mexico, a lot of things are coming from China, you cannot regulate that as much. So when they press the pills to look like it with no medication in it, with something that might get you addicted to get you coming back more and more, then, you don't stand a chance. And right now the numbers are 6 out of 10 pills are potentially lethal because of the fentanyl. And that's from the DEA.
6 out of 10 pills.
6 out of 10, that's 60%, yeah.
Are lethal.
And I'm sure it's higher than that. They just have not come out and said it yet.
Well, that is really scary.
It is. And we just got to protect people. So I highly recommend to test it if you want to do it at all. And once you test it, you keep Narcan on you as well, or Naloxone. They have Cloxado. They have different brands. If you keep that on you, you may be the first responder. You have like 8 minutes before someone's brain dead after they stop breathing. And that's what this does to you. It stops you from breathing. So if you keep it on you, it might not be, you can't Narcan yourself or, do that. So, but if you keep it on you, you may be able to help someone else. And that's why I would recommend keep it in a car and in a first aid kit. And if you're traveling, definitely keep it with you.
Okay. Where can we find Narcan or Naloxone?
Well, here's the thing. I know CVS's all around the country. They have them. You just have to ask the pharmacist to give it to you. If you have insurance, it's covered. If not, it is about $70. We are a Naloxone distribution center, and we're located in Newport Beach. And there are a lot of Naloxone distribution centers throughout the state of California. Now, other states You will have to find out, but usually CVS will have it if it's legal in your state, and it should be. But you do have to ask for it because it's behind the counter and they're not advertising it. And what happens is the pharmacist will write a prescription because they can write prescriptions and they will give it to you.
Why don't they advertise it?
Probably because there's a stigma still to it. Same reason we're not talking about it every day on the news. If you think about it on the news, you hear about drug busts, you hear about people going to prison, but you don't hear anything educational that can help a parent like Amy know about fentanyl and what to do if your child has it. How many lives that they could save if they were just talking about this and educating people on a daily basis. Mm-hmm. And it literally takes about 5 times to get to one person to make them realize what we're talking about.
Right.
Because most people think it's just about addiction and people who are addicted. And that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about everyday people. People like me, people like you, people walking down the street. People who have no maybe thoughts of even doing a pill. But it's the cartel's goal to get everyone addicted because then they can make a lot of money.
Exactly.
Right.
One concern that I actually heard from another podcast too is like I'm shocked that these guys haven't been able to get the dosing right on this. Like you would think that the cartel doesn't want to kill their customers, the customer base, but if they can like create such amazing like identical pills, you would think that they could at least like properly dose this drug. But
well, they're not scientists. They have the money to do it, but why would they put money into it? They'd lose money that way, right? So, and it's not necessarily that they want to kill people, but you're just casually in their short-term thought process. They're not looking long-term. They're doing a money grab. They know there'll be more people coming through that revolving door, and the internet has been a cash cow for them. So I get that question all the time. Why would they want to kill their customers? It's not that they want to kill you. They really want to get you addicted.
Right.
But if you die, you're just a casualty in their money grab for sure. Mm-hmm.
So how can we apply Naloxone or Narcan?
Oh, I keep it on me too. But you basically it's a nasal spray. Mm-hmm. The quick, dirty application is just if you notice they're either nodding, if they're nodding, you can get them to an emergency room. But if they're passed out, you'll know they'll have pinpoint pupils. Like their black of their eyes will be pinpoint and they will be having trouble breathing, passed out. So what you do is tilt their head back, spray the nasal spray, through one nostril. And then if they don't start to come around in 2 to 3 minutes, then you can do another nostril. If they're not breathing or their heart stopped, you have to do CPR. And while you're doing that, waiting for them, and you don't let them go, even if they wake up. Here's the really weird and crazy thing about naloxone. If it works, because sometimes it takes many doses before it actually works, but if it works, the person will jump up like nothing happened. And they often, if they're addicted, they'll be upset with you because now you've ruined their high for at least 8 to 12 hours. Because what happens is that it's an opioid blocker. So the receptor in the brain's like this, right? And the opioid's here. So what the naloxone does is knocks that opioid right off of the receptor and it replaces it, and the opioids are just free floating, right? So it'll be like that for 8 to 12 hours.
And instead of feeling like nice and chill, you feel irritable.
Right. So the opioids are going to go away because remember I told you the half-life is really short. So they're really mad at you because no matter how much they take after that, it cannot get past the naloxone that's on that receptor. So, but they'll be ready to go. They don't want to go to the emergency room. And the thing is, they can. It often relapse depending on how much they have taken. So that's what they tell me. But I know those opioid receptors are in place. So more than likely, they will not get high again. But they can also have some other troubles after. So they really should go to the emergency room. They're not going to want to go there either if that's what they're used to doing. Now, if it's a kid, it's a different story. And you'll know as a parent if your kid took something because they'll be nodding. They'll be nodding, and you'll be like, this kid took something. It's just in your head. You must have taken something. That's the time to get them to the emergency room.
I see.
That's the time to go.
Okay. So if they take Narcan, then how soon should we see them, I guess, jump back up?
It's pretty instant. It's pretty quick. That's why I said if you don't see them within like 2 to 3 minutes moving, something is wrong. and you need to do it again in the other nostril. And
Okay.
you just keep switching nostrils. The thing is, I got to say, Kloxxado is one of our in-kind sponsors, but they have double dosages in their sprayer. Same size sprayer, but double the dosage. So Narcan has 4 milligrams and Kloxxado has 8 milligrams. And I understand from people in the addiction world, they tell me that the more Naloxone you use, the stronger the withdrawal. So people really have a hard time with it. But, you ask yourself, is it better that they have that uncomfortable withdrawal or they're dead? And some addicts will say, death is better because you just ruined their high. And I've heard that. And it's sad, but if you're really addicted, that's where your mindset is. And you just don't care what happens to you. I've heard directly from people's mouths that they just didn't care. Right. It is what it is. Exactly what they said.
Right. Well, I gotta expect that they just feel so miserable.
Yeah.
That sometimes it's not even worth it.
It's painful too
crazy
to go through withdrawal, and people don't realize that have not experienced drugs. That they're like, oh, just stop taking drugs. Well, that withdrawal, people are on medication for their entire life trying to stay clean because the withdrawal symptoms are so strong and painful.
Right.
It hurts.
It does. It changes their entire mindset and their perspective too. It's like you don't just feel bad, like you're like clinically depressed. Everything that you're thinking about is negatively affecting you and your thoughts about life.
And you got to understand, like, people who are listening, is that a lot of times people start taking drugs because they're depressed, and now you're going through withdrawal symptoms, and so that just compounds it. Yeah. So it's not an easy situation. It always cracks me up when people say things like, oh, if you're depressed, just go make yourself happy. Go do something to make you happy. It's not about that. It's not how it works. It's a totally different thing going on in your brain. Your chemicals in your brain are not lining up the way they should. And depending on your situation might not be changing. It's so many factors. And people think everything's an easy solution, especially when it's never happened to them.
Right. I understand even out of all the things out there that could be supposedly good substitutes for someone going through opiate withdrawal, I know that kratom is something that's consistently growing. But I know even in that case, people will also go through some strong withdrawals through kratom as well. Maybe it may be, easier to, I guess, go through withdrawal since you don't go through the potential possibility of just dying. But for sure, I know even with that, there's like a lot of struggle.
Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure. And I just want to go back and say, because, the pills that we call them fake or counterfeit pills that are out there have gotten a lot of attention because they're pills and that people every day would take, right? For, various reasons. But it has truly been found not only in vapes and marijuana, but also in cocaine, which is very hard to test and find. So cocaine and heroin, but the pills are getting most of the attention from the press because most people can relate to that. And you got to think the United States has kind of been set up to take a pill for everything. The people here take a pill for anything. There's a pill for gray hair right now. There's a pill for every single thing, any solution you want, collagen to, everything. And so we kind of been groomed into taking pills. It's no big deal. And so to take a pill for depression, which is necessary a lot, or anything, is something that we know we can do. And so that's gotten a lot of attention because it's definitely something that is accepted and easily accepted is how you cure things here. And that's what we do. In other countries, it may be a little different, but here we know we can take a pill and fix some things. And a lot of times that's what you need. But we've been definitely put into a situation where if we can't get our pills from the doctor, I'll just fix it. I'll go get it myself. I mean, I was guilty of that not long ago with antibiotics. I just couldn't get, I was self-diagnosing myself when I was sick from COVID, and I had complications and I kept getting infections. And at that time I wasn't even working. And so I didn't even have insurance. So people like me who don't have insurance can easily fall into this. And it's before fentanyl. I knew about fentanyl many years ago. And I got it from a friend who went to the Philippines, and stocked up on a bunch of antibiotics. And she told me, oh, I have antibiotics. And I'm like, cool. Because my doctor won't give them to me unless I go to the emergency room. And I don't have $3,000 every time I go to the emergency room to pay. So I'll buy what you have. And I took them not thinking about anything. And it's just antibiotics, you know what I mean? But still, it could be in anything. And in Mexico, they're finding it in more than just like Percocets and Xanax. So I thought back, like, I've never been a drug user like in my life. And here I am just taking antibiotics, and it could have been infiltrated easily with fentanyl. I don't know. I know it came from the Philippines. It's not Mexico, but still, there's no guarantees. So it's people like me who, figure I'll do it myself, or people who have lost their job that doesn't have insurance to get their medication, can easily fall into this addiction that the cartel, they want you to fall into, because now you're desperate to get it from them. And if it had fentanyl, I'd have been addicted, and I'd have been looking for more and more and more.
So how are they shipping this over? I know that some of them are being hidden in like candies like Skittles, right?
There's several ways. I mean, the most popular way is to hide it, and they get Americans to take it over the border from Mexico. And especially where I am in Orange County, is the vein to get it to the rest of the country. That's the highway to 405, which is also, runs all the way through, is the vein to get it to all the different other states. Sorry. And so a lot of the busts of drug trafficking happens in Orange County because, and they're not catching all of them. If they're catching 10%, I would be surprised. But they'll do creative things like put them in spare tires, inside the panel of cars. If they and that's people always are saying, oh, we need to close the border. We do need to secure the border. I don't know if we need to close it, because they'll find a different way to get it in. And I'm not into preventing people who need help from getting into the country, but if we just say hypothetically, because there are going to be people listening to this podcast saying, close the borders, right? If they close the borders, the cartels, they have a lot of money. What's to stop them from flying it in? They'll go right into the desert where no one's around and fly it in and ship it. I mean, they're shipping it in containers with coffee and everything. So, or by boat, So you close the border, it's not going to stop it. It could slow it down, but they do need to secure the borders with probably better equipment and more dogs and things like that.
Right.
Because it is a huge problem coming, and that's the biggest way it's getting across right now.
Right. I know they're only doing random testing though, so you'd have to literally stop and use dogs for every single truck that passes by, and that's insane.
But you know what? And I thought about this. Of course, I'm not law enforcement, but I remember years ago reading about the controversy of these police vans that were equipped that can literally see through the people's homes, like it's like an X-ray almost. And I remember seeing that, and this is maybe about 8 years ago. And because of privacy laws, you can't use those. You can't just go around looking into people's homes, right? It's almost like the X-ray machine at the airport kind of thing, like the one that goes around you, but it could literally see through walls. And I was like, wow, that's pretty cool technology. But why can't they use that for every car that goes by, right? Something like that. But I don't know. Like I said, I'm not law enforcement.
Right. Yeah.
But I'm thinking, and maybe you could see if there's something hidden and that you can pull people over for. Okay. The dogs are very effective though, but like you said, it has to be every stop, which would make the lines very long going across the border.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Mm-hmm. So can you tell me some accounts of, I guess, underage who have experienced this or have died from fentanyl?
Yeah. It's amazing because, it can be as innocent as this one girl, 16 years old. She decided, she went to the dentist, but on like a Friday, and she decided she didn't want any drugs, had some, work done. She like, I don't want drugs. I don't want it. And she went home the next day. She started feeling some pain by that night. It was really bad. Tried to call her dentist, didn't, of course, they're closed, no answer. And her friend says, well, I have something for pain, take this. And she died. And it was something as simple as, going to the dentist, and she did not want drugs. But because Once the numbness wore off the next day and she was in pain, she was ready to take anything, and she did. And the friend didn't mean to, kill her friend. She didn't know fentanyl was in it, which is common with kids, which is why the law should not sweep them up. I don't believe that. Notorious drug dealers is a whole different story, but kids who are passing around pills, definitely not. Then we have another.
What was it that she took?
I'm not sure if it was Oxy, but I know it was something for pain.
Okay.
It could have been Percocet. I'm not sure. But I know this next story, the 17-year-old who had a Xanax because his mother saved it. And this is the thing that boggles people's minds. He just took a really tiny corner of the Xanax. I guess he was afraid to take the whole thing or half. I mean, literally just like a little triangle off the corner. And that killed him. And he was like, sports guy, A student, living in a nice neighborhood, nice home. And when the coroner talked to the mom was like, she saved the pill. She said, how is this an overdose? He only took a corner. Usually an overdose, you take a handful of pills, right? How is this an overdose? And so now the terminology has changed from overdose to poisoning. And matter of fact, parents will get upset with you if you use the word overdose because they like, no, this is not an overdose. They didn't even take the whole pill. And that happens a lot because kids are scared to take the whole pill. So they'll take half trying to be safe and still pass away from it. And they call this the chocolate chip cookie effect, Niles, where you were talking about how they can't mix it evenly. So when the cartels are where it's sometimes the field, the shed, the garage, mixing this stuff, they're not scientists. They're hiring like farmers to do it, right? So they put the fentanyl in there, and just like a chocolate chip cookie, you might not know where all the chocolate chips are, right? So it could be hidden, it could be on the top, it could be on the bottom. So that's why when you test it, you got to test the whole thing because the chocolate chips are the fentanyl. You just don't know where they are. And they're not really concerned about mixing it evenly. They're just not. And they're not going to spend the money to do that. They really won't. They want to do this as cheaply and efficiently as possible to get you addicted. And if you die, oh well. Oh well.
So that's why you said if someone even wants to still like get the high or something, then they test it with a fentanyl kit, then they just drink the water,
right?
Because that way it's not actually like a chocolate chip portion,
right? And you can definitely see, it'll tell you if there's any fentanyl, and of course you're not going to drink it unless that's what you want, fentanyl. I've seen people on YouTube test the pill by wetting a Q-tip and kind of rubbing it on the pill and then testing the Q-tip, and I'm like, that's not going to do it. I mean, you're lucky if you get the fentanyl on that side of the pill to test positive. Consider yourself lucky. You really need to dissolve the whole thing.
Gotcha, I see.
Yeah.
So powder-wise, how does someone test?
It'll be the same thing. You're gonna have to put it in the water and then drink it. If it's clear, there's no fentanyl in it, and you're clear to drink it. That's the only way. Some people inject it, but then you're risking all kinds of infections, especially if it's got xylazine in there. And the test strips are just starting to come out with for xylazine as well.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah,
that's really good. So Narcan comes in shots too, right?
Yeah, mostly at the hospital they'll use that. If you're gonna give me a minute, I'll show you what I have if I can find it.
Yeah, please do.
My purse is big, so. So I have it here. So this is Narcan, and you guys can see it's a little spray, 4 milligram spray, and basically I keep it on my person. I have it in my car as well, just because I never know if I'm going to be the first responder. I really would like to see what the traffic accident reports are showing now, because the problem is they're not tracking all of this very well right now. And I'm sure people are popping pills, and I know for a fact, because I know some people have saved people with this who have passed out in a car that they didn't even know. But people are probably taking like a Xanax in the car, and then that's it, fentanyl, crashing, passing out. I would love to hear some stories from some EMTs about what they've been finding, because I know that this is happening, and it would be good to see how many fatalities and accidents have happened compared to previous years before this became such a problem. And the numbers are growing exponentially every year. So imagine the accidents are going to grow too. So these are things you just got to think about, because people just don't know. They just don't know. Like with COVID on the news, we had countdowns and tickers, and only thing you hear on the news about fentanyl usually are the drug busts, which once you hear about that so many times, you start just tune it out, right? And then you hear about maybe if someone goes to prison for it federally or something like that for many years, then you'll hear about it, because in California especially, that doesn't happen. Yeah. So we need to talk about it as much as possible to get through to people so that they understand. One of the main things that we find is an obstacle is that most people think it can't happen to them or their family. And those are the people who are primed for it to happen to, because you don't think it can happen to you.
Right.
So you don't take any precautions. You don't have Narcan. You don't talk to your kids. You don't talk to your family about it. People who are in tune and know this can happen, I've told people, and they did a whole big family text to tell them specifically, and this is what I tell everybody to do, to have your teens as young as 12 Google fentanyl, fake pills, and a lot of come up, right? Have them to either do a report or come back and report to you what they found. Because now you've educated them. They now are becoming ambassadors to tell their friends, and their friends will tell their friends. So that way it doesn't happen to them, hopefully. Now they're aware at least that this is out there and how it happens. And it's mind-boggling, because here's the thing. Parents don't know that your child can have a lethal pill in your house in less time than it takes to order a cheeseburger. And I say that because what happens is they'll start usually on Instagram, and a drug dealer might find your child, or your child might even use one of the emoji codes, because they're emoji codes for drugs. And they'll maybe be curious and seek it out. But by then, now the drug dealer is following you, and the algorithm in the past especially would help them to follow you, more than one drug dealer. And so they're very savvy. So a kid will post something like, I'm starting a new school tomorrow. And they're like, oh, are you nervous? Yeah. And, befriend them. Well, I have something to help you with your nerves if you want it. It only costs $4 and you just have to pay for delivery. Okay, cool. I'll try that, eventually after they poke enough and push enough. And so they'll say, okay, go over to Snapchat and we'll do the transaction there. And why do they go to Snapchat? Because it disappears in 24 hours, right? The whole transaction. And when they finish, a service like, I'll just say a food delivery service that we commonly use, several of them, because they don't just deliver food anymore. They'll pick up a package from point A and take it to point B, and they don't even know what's in it.
Right.
So just think of your favorite food delivery service, and they can use that to get the drug to your child, and you'll just see, regular food delivery service come to your door. You're not thinking they got drugs, right? So your child will have a lethal pill in their hand and take it to their room. And usually that's where parents find the kids, is in their bedroom the next morning. And it's not a pleasant sight to see your child like that. And they suffered for a few seconds anyway. Okay. So parents beware, you think you know what's going on and you don't. And to think that this can't happen to you. And that's how I got in this business. I know it can happen to me. I know I have daughters in that age range, and, I know they have experimented, some of them, and it could happen, God forbid, but it could happen to just, me, and it could happen to anybody. So I'm like, we got to do something. If we don't stand united with this, it's going to keep getting out of control. And the police, they only have certain, their hands are tied in a way. They can't do but so much. They're going out educating. They're trying to start task force and things like that. But in California, we have the Public Safety Committee. They've been fighting anything that has any extra penalties or anything dealing with the police with this. And they've been squashing it because, we did have a war on drugs back in the 80s and 90s and even part of the 70s. That was failed. It was a failed attempt. It really hurt Black and brown people. It was awful. And because our legislators know about that, they're afraid to repeat it again, which is honorable. You shouldn't repeat that again. But this is different because we're not locking up people for just having personal amount of drugs on them. We're not doing that. We need to lock up the people who are killing. We never in the history of the war on drugs had people kill exponentially with drugs. Now that's happening. We never had the internet the way it is, where they can stalk kids to just get them addicted. That's the goal, just get kids addicted young. You know, this is different. And, you know, I lived through the war on drugs. I saw it. I know it was bad. But this is not the same thing. And you can't put this in that same slot. It just doesn't fit. And I think we need to look at it as a multifaceted approach, from harm reduction to stronger laws, different laws for this, just totally different laws for this stuff. It's just going to get worse. And it's fentanyl and its analogs. And then because the cartel tends to, they're smart. You know, if fentanyl gets outlawed, then they're going to come up with something else, you know, very similar, but something else. They're very creative that way. And I just want to honestly just keep the kids safe, keep their parents safe. We have parents leaving their kids to grandparents because somebody said, oh, it's my birthday. Let's party. Let's order some cocaine in, and they'll do a line of cocaine, and that's it. That's it. It only takes one bump. That's it. And it's done, and they're done. That's why it's so important. That's why it's so important. We have a lot of work to do because people aren't listening. They're not hearing us. And the ones that hear us often is too late. So we got to let people know ahead of time.
I think a lot of people, or I think there's a good amount of people that are at least aware of fentanyl, but I think they just don't understand just how stringent this is, and how prominent, how common fentanyl is found in these drugs. I was surprised to hear that, you know, 2/3 of overdoses are fentanyl.
Oh yeah.
I was shocked to just hear just how much was being spread around in different kinds of drugs. I didn't know it was in weed. I didn't think it could be in ketamine, but of course that makes a lot of sense now, especially since, you know, non-prescribed ketamine use is growing, even if ketamine is legal now if prescribed. So
yeah, it definitely is prominent. And I mentioned this to you earlier that I go to regular business meetings, have nothing to do with fentanyl, and I'll just introduce myself and the company and what we do and how we save lives. Because I always try to put a positive spin on it, because otherwise I feel like the Grim Reaper coming in telling people all these stats, you know? So never has not failed me yet. A person, one or two people, usually two people on average, will come up to me after the meeting and say they lost someone, or someone in their family lost someone, or a friend has lost someone to this. That tells me right away that this is a problem, huge problem. I can't go anywhere to non-drug associated meetings and just be at a meeting and, you know, several people come up to me and tell me this happened to them that I never met before. I had one parent show me a picture of her son at prom, and there were two young ladies next to him. And she said, you see these two girls? They did Xanax and they both are gone now.
Wow.
From his fentanyl poisoning. And that's what we're dealing with. No one is safe. People are burying a whole generation of young kids. These are our kids, you know, 18 to 45 is our military age. But like I said, it's starting to affect every single demographic. It started with the affluent neighborhoods like in Orange County, where I'm from, because you had to have money to have the internet, right? You had to have money to order it. You had to have money for the delivery service and access to all of this. And usually affluent kids had that. But now it affects every single demographic. I think white women are the number one demographic that it affects, and then Black men. We don't know why that is for sure, but those are the highest numbers at this point. And we're doing everything we can.
White women,
yeah, because you know that's where the opioid epidemic started, with prescription drug abuse. And so when they couldn't get it, where else are they going to get it, you know?
Right.
You know, people are strong-headed, you know, like I'm guilty of it too, where I was like, oh, you don't give me the medicine I need, I'll go out and get it myself. You know, that's totally my personality. You won't give me what I want, I'll do it myself.
Yeah. And
so you go out and you get your medicine thinking it's legit. It looks legit. Why shouldn't it be legit? But it's not. It's not. It's totally a sham, fool you, counterfeit, fake situation that you're in.
White women and Black men. It's surprising. You would think that most of these deaths just happen in something like an event or like at festivals and things like that, but it just happens all across the board, wherever anyone can find any kind of
right.
substance that's not prescribed.
I did read a story where at a recent festival, a group of adults found a bag of pills just randomly, just a bag of pills. And this is a true story. And they had just gotten fentanyl test strips from a booth that was giving them out for free with Naloxone. And out of fun, they decided to test them, and surely they were contaminated. And so they didn't take them where they may have taken them. I've seen all kinds of incidents like that. Even one of my employees insisted that a person take the fentanyl test strips and the naloxone with them. And they were like, no, I don't need it. Again, thinking it can't happen to them. And they were partying, and out of fun, as a joke, they decided to test their pills, and they were fentanyl. People will be surprised what they're taking has fentanyl in it, and they're probably already addicted to it and don't even know it. Just they don't know it because they think they're taking something else, so they have no clue. They just know they want more Percocets, more Xanax, more Adderall, whatever it is. It could be narco and anything, literally anything. They have so many pill presses to make it look just like the pill that the DEA agents who have been in this business for 30 years or more cannot tell the difference between the fake pill and the real pill. So how are you supposed to know? And it's not your fault. This is what I'm trying to get across to people. We have so many parents and people who have lost people who won't come out and talk about it. Matter of fact, there are parents who will tell that their kid died from something else. They'll say that, they won't tell what it is that they actually died from. Celebrities too. Let me get back. Because there are some celebrities that recently have had, I won't say any names, had incidents that you know of that will swear that it was something else. But we know it was fentanyl. It's just signs are there,
yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
Even recently as of this weekend. And I don't understand why they would let a stigma of drug use prevent them from coming out and talking about this, because you did not take that drug with consent, the fentanyl. We know there's a shortage of Adderall right now, legal Adderall that you can get from your doctor. And why? China doesn't have the raw materials for Adderall for some reason, but they have fentanyl. We know that you've been, tricked. You've been tricked. People need Percocet, Xanax, and all those things, but you've been tricked. That's not what you meant to take. Please come out and talk about this to people so that we can keep this from happening. And we need more celebrities to come out and just say, look, I took a pill and it had fentanyl in it, and this is what happened to me. Mm-hmm. Because you will affect so many people. And I have one celebrity in my head right now that I'm thinking about and talking to. You can affect so many people and save so many lives, kids and everything. And because you're afraid of your reputation, drug use is something that is, it's recreational, it's legal in so many places. Come out and talk about this. Help other people. Because people don't know. You had Niro's grandson, which is the one that the mother came out and she's, mad as she should be. And she knows this was not supposed to happen to her son. The Percocet Princess, that was her name, that sold it to him. Percocet Princess sold him Percocet and he died.
Percocet Princess?
That's what's the girl's name. They arrested her, of course, because it's De Niro's son. De Niro has such a big voice. He has a Tribeca Film Festival. We need to see a film about that. You know what I mean? We need him up here fussing about it. His voice resonates, and I'm sure they're still in grief, because a lot of times with families who've lost people to fentanyl poisonings, their grief is so strong, they can't even get out the door to help. And I recognize that. Especially I think the hardest thing for a parent is to lose a child. So I get that. But the parents who are ashamed, or the celebrities who are trying to protect their reputation, I need you to stop that. This is not your fault. It is not your fault. You need to come and help us and help other people. Even our organization's just one, fentanylsolution.org, but we need their voices now before it's too late. Mm-hmm. We don't need to lose more people. We're even working to get a law on the ballot to get stronger laws for drug dealers who specifically kill with this drug. Drug traffickers, not like kids and people who have addiction issues, but just to get the word out about even that, because we do need stronger laws. It's just nothing is deterring people right now from doing this. You have some drug dealers even trying to test their supply, but they can't do it unless they dissolve the whole thing. So testing, if a drug dealer tells you, oh, I tested it, you still have a pill there. That's not good enough. It should not be good enough.
We all know that, a lot of people take drugs, and I think the stigma over this really does need to be released, because I know everyone's just scared of like admitting like, my niece did drugs, or my nephew did drugs, or my son did. But I mean, this just happens. And the thing is, Western medicine, it's all symptom relief and drug use. And a lot of these drugs, of course, like you said, people are trying to find off the streets because they can't get it prescribed.
Yeah.
And a lot of these people are still having these issues that they're trying to, move through. So I think people should be aware that it's not simply, people aren't just druggies, People are just going through a lot of problems, and they're just trying to make it through life.
Yeah, they're trying to cope. The life right now in this world, I've been here a long time, is very difficult. It's very difficult. The cost of living is extraordinarily high, yet paychecks are not. If you can keep your job, it's so much going on mentally. It's not like it used to be. I mean, just as something as simple as, I just look down the TV guide and I tell everybody, look at your TV guide. Find a positive show that's, from this era, not like reruns from like back in the day. Everything's like the first 48. I shouldn't be alive. You have some reality shows that are pretty decent that don't have negative connotations, but everything's so depressing that's on your TV that you're actually watching. They say you are what you listen to, you are what you watch, you are what you eat, all that kind of stuff. Well, if we're watching things that aren't so positive, constantly being bombarded by those things, how can we feel good, And then we're seeing on the reality shows, people who are living the great life, allegedly, and we aspire to do that. But how do you do that when inflation's high and your paycheck's low? I mean, are you working 3 jobs? How do you do that? And so people get depressed and they want an out. They need to, and the doctors will prescribe stuff at first. They won't cut you off eventually. So how do you survive this? How do you survive this era? It's difficult. So I understand people looking for out. Meditation doesn't work for everybody. Going fishing doesn't work for everybody. It just doesn't. So the stigma that's attached to this needs to fall off and go away. And we need the big voices to come out to be part of our army and talk about this. And I applaud you today for having me here to talk about it, because like I said, the more platforms we're on, the more we have to say it more than one time. We have to tell people over and over again so they get it. Because I'll see comments like, oh, why are you taking fentanyl? You take fentanyl, you should know better. Well, people don't know they're taking fentanyl. You can't respond to everybody on social media. They don't know they're taking it. The other thing is just don't do drugs. And we already talked about that. That doesn't work. It just doesn't work. You can't just say no, it doesn't work. It didn't work back then. It doesn't work now. Especially now when times are so difficult. So I just really want these celebrities to step up to the plate. I would love to do a video with just talking heads of them talking about fentanyl, some of the stats we talked about today, how to educate your children, those sort of things. And I think they could save so many people, because people listen to them for some reason.
For some reason.
For some reason. Yeah.
I had 3 very close friends that passed away within the last 3 years as well. So I know myself that deaths are very unexpected. Yeah. And in my personal life, a huge majority of the deaths were the most unexpected. So
I'm so sorry to hear that.
I think that what you're doing here is very powerful, but people do need to hear this because no one's going to expect that, like their brother, their sister, their girlfriend, their boyfriend, their wife, their kids is going to suddenly die from a fentanyl overdose or a fentanyl poisoning. But it definitely needs to become aware.
Right.
At least, like you said, it's really hard to tell someone to stop something they're addicted to. But it's very, very easy to just let them know. It's very, very easy to just teach someone something. You know, it's very easy to just tell someone something. You know, we have a whole school system where we're teaching kids for years. It's very easy to just listen to someone for like 5 to 10 minutes and say, hey, you could possibly be overdosed by this pill or by this drug. So just carry this around with you and be aware.
It changes
I think that'll
lives
change a lot.
forever when someone is lost. The siblings are affected. Of course, the parents are affected. Friends, everyone's, it changes their whole life. Your life is not what it used to be anymore. The schools, I have some things to say about schools because schools have lost kids to this. A lot of them don't want to talk about it or advertise it, of course, which is understandable. But they also are preventing people from coming in and talking about it on a regular basis. We have schools right here in LA that won't let parents come tell their stories. And the parents' voices who lost kids resonate, with the kids. And they won't let them in the schools because they don't have a certified curriculum, And there's some organizations like ours and Song for Charlie, where you can download a curriculum from their website and you could possibly use that if it's accepted. But the schools won't even return your call. The school districts won't even return your call when you try to get in there to do things to educate the kids who can be ambassadors, not only for their friends, but for their families, and tell them, hey, you're taking this. Let me tell you about what I learned, One of the things I want to do, my background also, I've been a public school teacher in television production, and I would love to see some film festival challenges for kids where we showcase their films or their videos that they did on the subject of fentanyl poisonings. I want to get into the schools to do that. They have never returned my calls, never. I wanted to do an art contest with a poster contest, just as a PSA prevention type of poster contest, because the kids will push the envelope with these things and do some amazing types of creative arts. And no return call. So, and I've tried more in one place, more in one time. It's just that I know they're busy, but this is so important if you care about kids. Why wouldn't you? We can get parent permission for them to participate, but no return call. So we need people to be more proactive to prevent this. And sitting back saying, oh, that's sad, that's a shame, that's not helping. It's not helping. You got to do something. And that's the frustration I have with this whole thing, is that, it's not proactive enough. We need people to do preventative types of measures and not react later. We don't want to later.
Yeah. I mean, considering it's become, the number one death, right? Although now 14 to 45 in America.
Yeah.
The number one leading. Someone dies every 5 minutes from fentanyl poisoning.
Right.
That's a blasphemy. That's insane.
Right. They're thinking now it's more like 250 a day in the United States, and it's like 110 people a week in California. That's equivalent to a 737 crashing every week. And if that happened, people would be really upset, scared to get on a plane, and we'd be doing something about it preventatively, right? What are we doing? We're giving out more Narcan. That's great. Good. That's one step. There's some places that are doing task force. Great. What is the task force doing? The governor, and I don't have anything against the governor. I'm just going to start with that. But the governor is has the National Guard in San Francisco, I think, and San Francisco. I'm like, so what are they doing? And that's good optics, I guess. I don't know. Maybe it's not, because then it kind of looks like the war on drugs again, right? So what are you doing with the National Guard? How are they helping? Please tell me, what is the strategic plan there? And then I saw something about the sheriff just arresting everyone in San Francisco that's on the ground, addicted, passed out. And I'm like, why would you do that towards? That's definitely the war on drugs. That's a sweep of people who have addiction problems that need help.
Right.
You know?
This is why I think people are so scared to talk about it.
Yes.
Oh man, I can't remember the country. It starts with a P, but there's a country in Europe that released the law that if you're caught with an illegal drug, you know, say someone died or was passing away or some friends had, you know, that substance, they aren't immediately sent to jail. And the number of overdoses dropped significantly to the point where that country had the least overdoses in Europe.
Because their friends would call 911 for help?
Yeah, they weren't scared to call 911. They weren't scared to talk about it.
Well, let me tell you.
They weren't scared to contact the police about it. But everyone here is scared, of course,
but here
because you are going to be arrested.
No. We have the Good Samaritan laws that protects people, even if you're a drug dealer. If you call and get help, 911, and save someone's life from overdosing, a lot of times the police still need to be trained on this, but you have the right of not being arrested because there are Good Samaritan laws in place to protect you. So, you know, I had one parent, and I feel for her because she's afraid of more laws because someone dumped her son on the side of the road while he was overdosing and left him there because they were scared. They ran scared. That's the other part of this. We have to let people know there are Good Samaritan laws. Police can't touch you. They cannot touch you. If they do, you have a lawsuit because you're protected by the Good Samaritan laws. You cannot go to jail. If they arrest you, you need your lawyer and you need to just say, hey, I should have been protected by the Good Samaritan laws. So one of the things we're trying to do
this is enforced in all of America?
Yeah, it's definitely California, but most of the states have it. You have to check your own state. But we're trying to educate in California about that, especially if we get a law passed or on a ballot. Is the next step is to have billboards about you're protected. And it doesn't matter. You could be the most notorious drug dealer on earth. And you're there and you call 911 and you save someone, they can't touch you with a 10-foot pole. They can't touch you. And if they do, because a lot of times police unfortunately have biases and things like that, and they'll still arrest people, but they'll get off because of this law. You just have your lawyer say, hey, he called 911. He's protected by the Good Samaritan law, and there's nothing they can do to you.
I see. How does this relate to if possession of drugs?
I mean, even if they have it, there's nothing you can do. They can't do anything to you. Yeah, you're covered from Good Samaritan laws because you saved someone's life. You called 911 for help. They're not supposed to arrest you. And the thing is, the police often don't know that. I mean, they can take the drugs from you, but there's nothing they can do as far as they should not be arresting you.
Okay.
Yeah, you should be protected.
Do you know how long this law has been in?
No, that's a good question. I need to look at one of myself, but it's definitely something we have here in California. A lot of states have it. I would have to look up and see, which ones don't. But most places are covered by that because it's the same thing that protects you if you give someone CPR and they die like a stranger, or you break their ribs while you're doing it. You're protected by the Good Samaritan law. It's the same thing.
I see.
Yeah, they can't come back and sue you for that or anything like that because you're protected.
So if you want to help fund the podcast, you could use code NILE as a discount off of Young LA clothes or huge supplements. Just real quick, I want to go back to, so how are these dealers getting in contact mostly with these kids or with these children? So you said a lot of them go to Snapchat. Where are they normally making first contact? Usually
on like Instagram mainly. And I'll just say that a lot of these social media platforms have been putting in more precautions, but then there are others that just aren't doing enough. So the reason they want to go to Snapchat, of course, because the transaction will disappear in 24 hours. So they'll start on Instagram, go to Snapchat a lot of times and do that. By the time you find your kid dead and the coroner tells you what it is, fentanyl, a lot of times the EMTs will know, that transaction is gone. It's gone. And you have no way to figure out who your child talked to necessarily unless they go back to Instagram and get, the different, the inbox messages or whatever that have been back and forth. But in Snapchat, the actual transaction, it shows they sold you this pill is gone. And that's the proof we usually need to tie them together.
I see. So they're just like sneakily, I guess, advertising on various social medias.
Yes. And they advertise with the emoji codes, and the parents should know what the emoji codes are. When you see them, they're like an electric socket, like a plug. There's, of course, powder like snow for, cocaine or snowflake, things like that they'll use. And you should know those, and they're on the DEA's website. They're also on our website for fentanylsolutiongroup.org. We have two organizations, fentanylsolutiongroup.org. But it is really important. We do a lot of work with parents. We do these lunch and learns. It could be dinner and learns. We don't care. You bring your own food, or maybe your employer could provide lunch for you that day in California, and we'll go out and we'll educate people about fentanyl, because I can tell you this. If you have a big office or corporation, or even a small one, someone in your office is affected by this. Probably a lot of people are affected by this, and you just don't know it. So to have a lunch and learn like this, which we call Save a Life Lunch and Learns, you can help save your employees from going through this trauma. And it just shows you care. So I invite the biggest corporations, the biggest organizations, to the smallest, to call us or to contact us at fentanylsolution.org, and solution singular as in we are the solution. And we will come out, teach your employees about that, about fentanyl, about how to use Naloxone. And as long as we have it in stock, your employees all will get free Naloxone. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
We could use that.
I'm going to give you this one. You can keep it.
Cool. Thanks. Thank you.
I have plenty in the car.
Nice. Wow. You would think like, how do these dealers like do these like sell these in a way that's not so sus? But then again, I guess now that you're telling me, like, they'd be using like the snow emoji. There are kids out there that are looking for these things. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of kids out there on TikTok and social media that are looking for all sorts of drugs.
Oh yeah,
like
I mean, they're curious.
Steroids, yeah.
Kids are curious.
They'll take anything.
There's no difference. So I hear a lot of older people say things like, "Well, your kids shouldn't be doing drugs." You came from the '60s when it was flower power and Woodstock. This is not the same as back then. And, back in Woodstock, you knew your drugs were pure. It was nothing going to be necessarily in unless someone there spiked it, right? So, there are a lot of people talking a lot of smack right now who would be dead today if they did drugs like they did when they were younger. Mm. So kids being curious about drugs and anything that's out there is normal behavior. Mm-hmm. I want parents to think, oh, my kid, because a lot of times we parents look at our children as reflections of us. So we feel bad about us ourselves because our kid is doing something that we wouldn't approve of now, right? So, but that's not it. Kids, it's normal for kids to be curious. It's normal for them to wonder. Amy's son told her, she knew she was going to have problems, she said, because he told her when he came home from learning about drugs, he said, what does the altered mind state feel like? What is that?
Yeah.
Right. Because they're curious. And so she knew right then, oh God, I'm going to have a problem. This kid's always been curious. If your kid isn't curious, I wonder about them. So here's the thing. So now we have, as parents, a responsibility to do everything we can to protect them. So there's not a war on drugs, but there is a war against fentanyl right now, and a war against your children to keep them safe. So you got to do everything you can do. And that includes talking to them about this and having them report back to you what they found. Do it. It could save their life. It could save their friend's life. And I tell you, I can't say this enough, that people just don't get that it's not just about addiction. It's not, because unfortunately, there are people out here that don't care about people like the homeless, and it's affecting 78% of the homeless overdoses are fentanyl. They don't care about people who are addicted because they figured they made that choice, right? It's their problem. And I hear this all the time. But when I tell them, let me go back. When I tell them kids, though, a lot of times it'll pull on their heartstrings. But I got to tell you, I was at a meeting and I was the speaker. And it wasn't until I said, your dog can overdose from this being out on a walk because they can smell the residue. And, dogs sniff everything on the ground. They're low to the ground. Mm-hmm. So just sniffing some residue that maybe a drug dealer dropped or powder or whatever it is, they can overdose instantly. And that's another reason you can carry Narcan. On my dog's leash, she has Narcan in a pouch. She did about 5 years ago sniff something on the ground that she had an adverse reaction I thought she was going to die from. I don't think it was fentanyl, but it was something. Mm-hmm. I couldn't even stabilize her to get her into the car to get her to the emergency vet. It happened so fast. She was so sick so quickly, and she had a violent reaction to smelling whatever it was. She was trying to get it out of her nose. She was snorting, sniffling, trying to, just wasn't herself. She was really acting violently, trying to get it out of her nose. And then not even a few minutes later did she have such a bad reaction. I won't go into the details, but it was not normal. And trying to just get her stable enough to carry her from my apartment to the car to get her to emergency. I couldn't even do that because I was steady cleaning up, trying to get her, and she just collapsed. And when we got there, they didn't know what she had sniffed, but they knew she was severely dehydrated. It was like 10 minutes of trying to get her stabilized. Mm-hmm. So whatever she sniffed in 10 minutes dehydrated her so bad that they wanted to keep her on IVs for the hospital. And so it can happen. And it wasn't until I told people that it can happen to dogs that all the air got sucked out of the room for that meeting. Mm-hmm. People care about their animals, which if you have a dog, and I'll just say it, and they do overdose, you can put the Narcan in their nose if they have big enough nostrils. Mm-hmm. If not, you can take it and rub it on their gums, and that'll bring them back too.
I feel like it really relates more to the stigma of drugs. Like a lot of these people just believe, no, like my kid or my this or my whatever won't do drugs. I think that's what it is. Like, whereas, for these pets, it's an accident. They're innocent. They don't have any intention on taking this drug, right? But the way I see it is, it's kind of like back then when they had razor blades and apples. Mm-hmm.
Right.
People just eat apples. Mm-hmm. Like this can happen anywhere to anyone. That's why you told your kids not to eat apples, or like when they went trick or treating, like don't take this candy. So like, I think people just they really need to just like let go of the whole stigma that like my kid wouldn't do drugs or this is so morally wrong. Like I can't expect anyone that I love to be doing this. They shouldn't be.
Right. I can tell you that every parent that this happened to said that. Every parent who's lost a child said, oh, this won't happen to my child or my family. Every single one of them never thought it would happen to them. Mm-hmm. Even Amy, whose child is curious, she didn't know about fentanyl. She never thought this would happen to her family. That's why I said those are the most vulnerable people right now. Mm. If you think it can't happen to you, you are setting yourself up by not being prepared.
Right.
And just because you're not hearing about it on a daily basis in your face doesn't mean it's not happening in such a horrible way in such large quantities. Mm-hmm. It's happening to a lot of people. You'll be surprised who it's happening to.
Mm-hmm. Life is crazy. Expect the unexpected, for sure.
Absolutely. And like I said, we still have a lot of work to do. And we have a lot of ears that need to hear us.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for coming on this podcast today. I really appreciated this. Is there anything else you'd like to share with the audience or anywhere that they could find you?
Yes, we're on all social media platforms, usually as Fentanyl, Soul, S-O-L, and then we are fentanylsolution.org is the easiest way to find us. If you're interested in our ballot initiative, go to fentanylsolutiongroup.org. Add the word group in there, but solution is singular, fentanylsolutiongroup.org.
Okay, awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for all this. Guys, please check this out. It can really happen to anyone. So just let your friends and family know, anyone that you love. Awareness is key. Truly. So if you guys want to support the podcast, you can rate us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and it'll help a lot. And then Janice, thank you. Thank you so much again.
Oh, I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thanks, guys. Peace.